Today, we're talking with Dianna Freas, Set Decorator on For All Mankind, the Apple TV Plus series that follows an alternative history in the Cold War space race. Let's talk with Dianna. Welcome, Dianna.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We want to start out with a full disclosure that you are actually married to Dan Bishop, the production designer on this show.
This is true. And we actually have two kids, too, actually, who are young men now.
We've worked together for a long time. You've done some amazing work. Indy Artour's Jim Jarmusch and John Sayles, and some really incredible TV projects and film projects.
Dan and I met in graduate school at NYU studying set design and began working together not long after that. He designing and I working as the set decorator. At first, we started with Mystery Train and then did 3 with John Sayles and kind of traveled the country, which was great, ending with Lone Star in Eagle Pass, Texas. More recently, we've been doing television together. We did the This Is Us pilot, and right after that, we did The Good Place, the first season. And now we're doing For All Mankind.
An alternative history not only gives the opportunity to ask the question and answer, what if, but it also gives the opportunity for inclusivity.
Well, yes, we start with it being as close as possible to 1969 and to the mission control and the whole NASA story in terms of the look and also the history. So we started with an amazing amount of research. But then Ron's story wanted to explore what would have happened if women had been brought into the space program earlier. And we have our first African-American woman as an astronaut, and also Asian American as well, going off into space, which of course happened much later than 1969 to 74, which is our season runs that period.
Well, this is a alternative history. The surroundings are all of the time, of the period. There's nothing that is alternate there.
Correct. That's Ron. Again, we did a tremendous amount of research, and so much is available from the Apollo astronauts, Apollo 11 astronauts. They became media stars, articles in Life. So we actually could see a lot of the photographs of their homes, which was really helpful. And of course we did further research into the design of the time, but looking at design magazines and as well as Sears catalogs, because it's Houston, Texas. It wasn't high style New York or LA in 1969. We built the sets for the Baldwins, the Stevens, and the Cobbs. And we wanted to really differentiate between those homes.
Right, and they're very different homes. You see the different personalities of each, which is what set decoration is.
Ed and Karen Baldwin they're a more conservative couple. Dan chose it's a mid-century, but it's a colonial revival style house in Pasadena as the exterior. We actually shot the front and the back, and we did a big party scene for when the Apollo 11 astronauts returned on location. And then we built the set. We built the kitchen, family room, 2 bedrooms and hallways, and the front entry. The art department matched the foyer and the front windows, and also the whole back patio. We actually replicated on the stage, so we could shoot sort of semi-outside. In terms of the furnishings, there's a lot of colonial maple pieces mixed in with a few mid-century. It's a family room, which has oak paneling, and then we have the knotty pine for the cabinetry. The tones were all earthy golds and browns and a little bit of blues for accent and greens. Just overall, and the artwork was also just more traditional landscape and florals, especially Karen's personality. She's completely against women going into space, and she's really, traditional housewife and mother, from the late 60s.
The wonderful costume designer, Jill O'Hannison, did a terrific job on this period piece. Karen never wears pants, does she?
No, she's always put together. And I should just say that Jill did an amazing job. It was the best moment for me on every set was when the actors would come in with wardrobe and period hair and makeup, and would take you back to the late 60s. But that kitchen was, we first just built the breakfast nook where the little table was. And then, of course, they kept writing more and more scenes in the kitchen. And then the directors were like, I need more kitchen. So we built half of the kitchen. We bought all the appliances knowing we would eventually build the whole kitchen, and we did. We filled it out. So, and it's great because there are doors on both sides. There are louvered doors that open into the family room. So there's a lot of great playing spaces, between the family room and the kitchen.
One of the great uses of set decoration that sort of threw everyone off, I think, was Molly's place.
I think that might have been a lot of people's favorite set, but it was very difficult to shoot in because it was packed full of stuff. But it's really her husband Wayne's space, an art studio as well as a living space, and it's even the bathtub. And that's funny. We built just the bathroom part first, and then we built the rest of the loft. But the tub open to the living room and the sink. Dan wanted it to be just an explosion of color when you go in there. Nancy Lai, who is my draper, was able to find some beautiful period draperies at Omega and Universal and Sony and Warner Brothers. And so those are all really strong graphic greens and red draperies. And then we had the fabric pull shades made, and each window had a different fabric on it.
And then, of course, there's Gordo and Tracy's place that is more modern and sleek.
I think originally they were going to cast a younger couple, but all four of the main actors are the same age, but we still wanted them to be more fun-loving and happy. And Dan found it was a Gregorian house in Mar Vista. It's probably one of the case study houses to use it for the exterior. And we shot just the front of the house. And then that was the inspiration for it, with the furnishings are all mid-century, the sectional couch and all the teak pieces. And again, more paneling, but this is a light colored birch. Walls were almost white. The curtain fabric that was a crowded fabric that we had to have, and it was shipped from Spain, but it was kind of pushing the budget line on that one.
There are some fabric manufacturers who do some very vintage-ish fabrics today. That must have been really a relief for you, because how difficult is it to find 30 yards of a fabric from the 50s or the 60s.
All of the draperies were custom made, mainly by Mega Cinema Props. And I have to just shout out to them and to Alan Songer, because they were so helpful, great source for us. There's Carroll Fabrics, was a manufacturer that we used a lot of their fabrics. They have a lot of beautiful open weave casement style fabrics at windows in the admin offices, the administration offices. You see all that everywhere in the 60s, just that open weave sheer. And so it was impossible to get the yardage. Yeah, it was a search. And of course, Nancy ran around downtown as well. So I just love fabrics.
Now, both Karen and I are big lamp people. This show has some incredible lamps.
Ethan Goodwin was one of my buyers. It was Ethan Goodwin and John Bradley. And Ethan was sort of my earth buyer. And so he was the one scouting out for all those lamps and all the beautiful furnishings. But we just covered City of Orange and Whittier, Pasadena Antique Mall, and just whenever we saw a great looking lamp, any of those beautiful shapes, those ceramic lamps, the beautiful shapes, we just grabbed it because we knew we would use it in all sizes. You'd have to order many lampshades, and also a few custom made. We were able to find a few lamps where we were able to use the original lampshade. You have to just turn it, like half of it works. You just make sure the onset dresser keeps shifting the shade per shot. But they just have so much beautiful detail, and when we had time, we would try to add some trim to the edges to kind of give it that vintage feel.
The Baldwin bedroom, a favorite of mine, because it had my favorite lamp in the show, which was a Celadon Juan vase shape, but also some really, really fantastic bedding.
We were lucky to find a matching bedspread and drapery set for the bedroom, which I just love. Of course, it's, floral, and it's actually really, more probably late 50s or early 60s, but it has that more traditional conservative look for Karen. And the lamp that you mentioned actually was bought by Ethan at Practical Props, and with, I believe, the original shade.
And another thing about a room, just in general, is a couch. Our couches are so different in each of the three main houses. The Cobb mohair vintage one's just beautiful.
That was from Omega Cinema Props. Actually rented. It was a 30s mohair couch with the patterns on the seats. The sectional in the Stevens we got at Hernandez Furniture. Ethan bought it there. And then Wirtz Brothers is where the Baldwin couch and chair, matching chair, came from. And that actually had an original sort of very dark paisley fabric on it, which we were able to, was still intact.
Well, I guess we should move on from home interiors to discussing mission control.
Huge. It's almost, 2 stories, the mission control room, and then there's a support room and the viewing gallery behind, which is why it had to be raised up on the upper floor. Ron Moore was the creator and head showrunner, but also Ben Medivi and Matt Wolpert. They wanted it to be as close to the original mission control as possible. Marco Rodriguez, my lead man, was very involved in we had to order a custom vents and custom lights, and everything had to be precise, and everything was, of course, not a standard size.
That is shocking to me that that was built.
First, the consoles themselves came from Cosmosphere, it's a space museum in Kansas. They had acquired those from NASA. So those are original consoles. And then third of them came from Woody's props from, I think, Apollo 13. Then we had to customize everything for all of the different positions. And the screens, we had to outfit them. We put flat screens inside for playback, was best for playback. John arranged to have curved screens made in the bezels to make them look like they're CRT monitors, which would have been for the period. It was a lot of work of all the buttons and gadgets. And we really did a huge amount of research in the art department and set dressing and prop department. Jamie Menguel was the prop master. So all those Coke cans, that was the prop department. And we did build some small consoles, which we did not have, which they had. It was a pneumatic messaging system, which they would literally put written messages in tubes and then send them down a chute, right? And so we had to build those small consoles that would go in between the big ones.
In Mission Control, we have the offices as well. Every office is different.
We didn't have a working relationship with NASA because we're in an alternate history, but everything on the NASA website, it's an amazing website. It's all in the public domain. Maps and, flight manuals. And the art department also created Evan Register, the graphic designer, and he would choose the image and then he would crop it and blow it up and then I'd have them framed. It just went on and on and on. And it just kept coming. We'd have these sort of graphic walls. Some of the stuff was from NASA and some of it were letters that had to be rewritten, and Kama Hayes, the art department coordinator, and Sylvia Donati, my set deck coordinator, redoing letters and documents. And then we, would age them. And one in the astronaut meeting room, the letters come in from newspaper articles and magazines from all over the world right before the Apollo 11 crew lifts off. So we filled the room with those. And then another scene with their astronaut candidates. The women, they get letters from all over the world, handwritten letters from children and mainly children and adults. And we had everybody in the art department and the set decorator department, writing these letters, and we had, period postmarks and stamps, and recreated it. And so, because see it in close up.
Wonderful furnishings that had to be sourced. Beautiful, big conference table. Can you tell us about those, the offices there?
The table had to be a very specific size, it was 14 feet long. And so it's a Herman Miller table, with the Eames sort of aluminum group base. But Retro Offices, we used them quite a bit. They were a wonderful resource. They made the custom top, with a walnut veneer. And then they also made all of the custom chairs that are in Mission Control, which are sort of the tanker style. They had been collecting bases and seats, and they reupholstered and painted them and restored them. So they're beautiful because I had to have 30 matching chairs, office chairs. So the only way to find that was, to have them made.
And then we go from offices to space.
Actually, the command module had been in First Man, and Eric Osuski, who was our art director, was the supervising art director on that. So he knew everything about 1969 space travel, and it was amazing. He took myself and Mark Rodriguez and John Bradley out to these aviation sort of salvage yards, and we just were like digging through, to find pieces and parts to work for the capsules and also eventually for Jamestown. So much of it was salvaged and had to then be restored. Dan and John, Carlos, the supervising art director, and Eric would design the spacecraft or whatever was needed, but it had to be replaced. And then John would go out and try to source them. He would bring them in, and then he would adjust the plans to fit what he had found. So it was a collaboration between the art department and the set tech department. So with the command module, was a burnt out shell when we acquired it because it had been used for the Apollo 1 disaster. And so we had to completely restore it. It came from Universal. We rented it, we restored it, and returned it to them. So it was, I don't know what happened to it next, but it's in great shape now.
And then in outer space, we have the actual Jamestown base.
The lunar surface was created, obviously, by construction and paint and the great sculptor that they had. But then all of the components that the astronauts are working with, the rover and any equipment, large and small mining equipment, brought in by SETDEC and also working with the art department. Again, it was a lot of John finding salvage pieces and also period electronics pieces and a lot of ordering. A lot of boxes came in, and every day, little presents, and just creating these things from scratch. So it was a really collage kind of almost collage art project, between Mark Rodriguez and Mike Mestis, who was the gang boss, who was kind of in charge of Jamestown. And we just have really talented set dressers who were just so technically gifted. And I mean, Ron wanted it to be, even though it's our alternate history, and he wanted it to still reflect the technology that was available, where everything is exposed. All the technology is in view. Fuel cells are there, and everything is it's just very industrial looking.
There are a couple of other sets we want to talk about too. Certainly after coming back from the moon, you'd want a good stiff drink. So we have our local bar, our astronaut bar.
The Outpost Bar. And again, Ron wanted it to be a place where the astronauts could really be themselves. A lot of the memorabilia behind the back bar and around in the room are photos and pieces from the earlier missions, the Gemini and the Mercury, and also from the test flights. So there's a lot of just photographs of older airplanes in the 40s and the 50s. Texas memorabilia, the Texas flag, and armadillo at the bar. Some fun things. So it was, it's got a little bit of a down and out bar, but they spent a lot of time there.
Well, a bar is a place to spend time.
Right.
Along with these young astronauts, we have the established rocket scientist Werner von Braun's house.
We do. We go to Werner von Braun's from NASA, and he's back at Huntsville. It's a mid-century house, but it's very dark, a very dark paneling. It's much more serious and severe. It's very muted colors, an existing moss-colored wall-to-wall carpet that I think was original. But the artwork tried as much as possible to avoid using any giclée prints, because von Braun spends a long time standing right in front of the fireplace where there's oil painting, and it's just the depth of the paint really shows. And so that made me very, very happy. It's another story point with photography this time. They actually pan across the piano, and there are photos from von Braun's early life, as well as then Evan, our graphic designer, had to superimpose pictures of the actor, one where he's with Kennedy, and another one where he's at NASA in front of the Saturn V, which he designed. Story points right there, just panning across 6 photographs would tell the story.
The artwork was amazing, and that ties into your background, doesn't it?
Yeah, I have a degree in illustration from Parsons School of Design, and I also have painted through all those years between doing a film and television project. Most of the artwork, I really wanted to be period artwork and with period frames where possible. So Omega, most of the artwork was rented from Omega Cinema Props, because they really do have a wonderful collection of period pieces from the 60s and the 50s. It's really hard to replicate that. But all of the framing for the NASA pieces was done by a place called the Canvas Peddler, which I love, but they just closed their shop after 30 years. Occasionally I'll sneak in my own artwork. If we needed sketches, I needed sketches for Molly and Wayne's. He's an artist and an illustrator. And so I just brought in some figure drawing sketches, because I do them on brown papers and gray paper rather than white. And so I just put them on the table, his drafting table. And they ended up starting on the drawings and then going into the scene. So that was it's fun. It's always fun.
There's so many ways to watch television, so much content. But it's changed the way television looks in that it's shot wider. It is more cinematic.
Working with Dan from the early days before kids was all film. So you can see anything. You can see things in great detail on a giant screen. So yeah, just you have to address every single inch of a set. So I that's the only way I know how to work, actually. And I think, and again, with television now is so much more like a film, the way it's shot.
So can you tell us, are we getting a season 2?
Yes, actually we have finished shooting the first 8 episodes, and we were in the middle of the 209 and 210 when we had to shut down for the coronavirus, and we're hopefully going back this month to finish up. There's a teaser at the end of season 1 where we jump to 1983, so we jump about a decade. So within advances in technology. And all our characters 10 years older, although they look really good.
With the excuse to get a whole bunch of new stuff, a new decade.
Yes. The 80s, going to the 80s. It's a little tricky because it can't be really high style 80s, so it's a little tricky. Improving upon mid-century. It's a little tough.
80s? Oh.
Yeah.
That was a bad decade. That's some tragic stuff there.
Well, we're thinking everything was purchased in the 70s. So
There you go.
There we go. Yeah.
There you go.
A little more fun. And you don't toss everything out, as people do now, right? You keep everything from your home and you just add to it. So,
well, this has been a really terrific conversation, Dianna. We want to thank you for joining us and spilling some of your secrets.
Thank you, Jean and Karen. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Visit our website, setdecorators.org, for more videos and more content.